many hands make light work. The one thing I would say about the whole idea of this physical activity plan is that the timing of this is so perfect for coming out of COVID and getting our city back moving around, because physical activity is so good for mental health. And, you know, I just want to press upon the group that this sports sector has an opportunity not only impact the youth of our city, but really the whole mindset of how we use sports as a community to bond us together, to connect us, and to make us better. We're stronger together, no doubt. Obviously, that's something that we want to ride into this strategy session, and identifying what the potential is of a group like us, like-minded people that come together to make a difference. And also just know that there's other sectors out there that are doing the exact same thing. And we are going to be a very strong army of people, co-conspirators, trying to make a difference in the lives of people in our city. And just appreciate you taking the time to do that with us.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I like that, an army of co-conspirators. That's a good nickname. Okay, Bryce, if you could zoom in just a little bit more, sorry.
Sure.
And feel free to go directly into that Google Doc link if you want to. It looks like there's a handful of people in there right now. This was a Mentimeter poll that we did during the first meeting. And the question was, what strategies are the highest priority in Kansas City? And there was a pretty clear grouping of responses. The top three were strategies 3, 7, and 4. And strategies 3 and strategy 3 was really about expanding access to spaces and quality sports programming while focusing on eliminating health disparities. Strategy 7 was creating safe and inclusive environments for sports participation that promotes physical activity and health. And strategy 4 were adopting policies and practices that promote physical activity, health, participant growth, and development of physical literacy. So those really were the three that really jumped out from the Mentimeter. The others, the other 5 were less so. That could be, I don't want to think too much into that though, because I did think we limited responses. So you can only pick maybe 3. This could be a little bit of artifact of how we answered the question, but it did seem to at least demonstrate some clear priorities, priority strategies. So this was the Mentimeter that we did during the meeting. If you scroll down, yeah, thanks, Bryce. Additionally, I shared a RedCap survey link where we asked more detailed questions about strategies, specifically how likely they were to be implemented locally within 3 years, within 5 years, and how likely they were to be implemented or to improve health. And so that is what you're seeing in this set of bar graphs right now. And so what I thought that we could do is we'll show this bar graph as we enter each strategy and use this as a starting point for discussion. So we'll start just with strategy 1. Strategy 1 was received, thanks, Bryce, that establishing a regional policy that emphasizes sports as a vehicle promoting and sustaining physical activity in the population. And this received very middling responses for both implementation and opportunities to improve health. So that kind of indicates to me that this is not something that really is something that is of interest to stakeholders at this point. So feel free to unmute yourself and provide any comments. You can use the chat box to provide any comments. You can also just enter comments in directly into the Google Doc if you want. And I'll kind of pause and let people consider those things and provide any comment. Things that I think about as I'm looking at these strategies are the things that we've already asked about: implementation and whether it improves health. Additionally, I'm thinking about equity. Does this directly address equity? And then I suppose the final thing is maybe this is happening already. And maybe that's why people don't rank it very high. So I'll kind of pause there and wait for comments.
Yeah, this is Jay. So just looking at this, kind of thinking if there were sports organizations, if there was some sort of central body that could mandate things to certain sports organizations in terms of equity, like establishing that each organization has a certain set of, say, scholarships for players to join their program, instead of it just being all what can the parents afford, what can the parents afford. That might be a good thing to establish. I don't know. I guess for me, the hardest part on this is how are you going to get each of those disparate soccer clubs and baseball clubs and basketball clubs to come together. I just think it's hard. I think that's the real negative, is just getting every single one of those organizations to agree to give up some control to some central body.
I think you're right. I've contemplated how do we put together a youth sports alliance that, brings together the stakeholders, both for-profit, pay-for-play, and nonprofit, rec, in different clubs, different levels. I think that technology will give us an opportunity to at least get to the table. Whether or not we allow it to actively change the landscape of youth sports is another question. But I love having Katie Wade here. I do love what KC Crew has done with millennial rec sports in our city. It is the prime example of how we could possibly put something together that would be an option for this idea. And I'll just kind of stop at that, but I just wanted to kind of echo that.
Hey, Robin, this is Joey. So the only thing I would say on this is that Kansas City is a little different than I think the majority of big cities around the country, where, we're bi-state, multi-city, multi-county. And so like getting any kind of governmental policy passed in any kind of school district or like that we've seen that with like Tobacco 21 or other like big policy programs. It's tough and it takes a long time. I'm not saying that it's, we know that policy approaches are good, they're longstanding and equitable, but I don't know if it makes sense for our region.
Yeah, these are great comments. As let's see, Jason just put in the chat, obvious positives would be kind of a set of standards for the region. Negatives, yes. Joey, I hear you. Multi-state, multi-county, multi-city, municipality makes it challenging. And I guess maybe I'll just say, is anything currently like this in existence? For example, are sports leagues, just the leagues themselves, are they unified in any way? Or maybe from a different...
They are not. And I have a friend who's worked in college athletics for over 18 years, and she just calls youth sports the wild, wild west. I mean, there's obviously NCAA is a governing body that sets, the standards, like them or not, for college, and the academics, institutions have to follow those in order to participate. Youth sports is, really Katie bar the door. Anything you want, you got. And it makes for a pretty it's just so randomized in terms of how it's policed. It's not policed. So
What about on like a little bit smaller scale? So within specific domains of sports participation or sports. So for example, healthcare. Is there much coordination among healthcare institutions around sports medicine?
Well, so insurance requires leagues to carry, uh, active sports medicine. If you go to the Brookside Soccer and or the Heartland Soccer, every single game has a physical therapist or some sort of medical person on staff, on call. So soccer has done a great job with that. I think football and basketball do not have the same. I've never seen a medical personnel at these basketball games, but high school basketball games obviously do. But not in the little leagues around the city. But soccer does have some requirements based on having to carry insurance.
Yeah,
Just to be clear, I don't think the soccer is a requirement. I think a couple of the leagues have made the choice and made business partnerships. I'm not for sure that it's a requirement.
but one way maybe to bring people together is kind of using that insurance. If insurance is maybe giving them a break if they have some partnership or athletic trainer coverage, maybe that's a place where you could pull people together and people could share the cost of athletic trainers, share insurance coverage for their different youth sports, and then maybe you'd get sort of a centralized group out of that, because money always seems to talk at least a little bit.
This is Katie with KC Crew here. So we're 100% in the adult realm of sports, but group insurance is something that we have discussed possibly offering in the future for that exact reason. Like we don't require necessarily our players to have health insurance. As an adult, you can make your own choice on that. But we have talked about possibly making it an option in the future down the road. I'm not sure when that would happen, if it does.
How about if I rephrase the question a little bit, and rather than ask or talk about a regional policy or a regional entity that kind of tries to create standards, but maybe are there any annual, quarterly, biannual meetings or conferences that are held regionally with sports organizations, youth sports, adult sports, sports medicine, anything?
KC Crew, we are in an association of other sports clubs like us all over the United States and in Canada as well. And we do have an annual conference. It was actually supposed to be here in Kansas City this year, but it went virtual instead. But we do get together and we all talk about how to run our leagues, who's running them the most successful ways, any ideas, any new ideas, anything to get rid of, anything to add. So that is definitely beneficial. We do have a Facebook group within our association as well. So like I know for myself, I post in there all the time to get feedback on different ideas. So we do work together across the United States with these other clubs. Definitely. There's no one else in the Kansas City area in the association that I'm a part of, though.
Hey, Robin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree with Joey from earlier that having a bi-state, multi-county kind of metro makes things challenging. But I think one thing we should think about as a group too is to try to see if we can recognize people within that bi-state, multi-county community that we'd like to hold up as a model. And we also know that competition drives a lot of folks, and if we can drive organizations, counties, communities that we think are doing an excellent job and highlight that, then maybe we get other communities to try to emulate that. And I always see it, I oftentimes see it as a negative too, but maybe we can turn it around and try to make it a positive too.
Like a little Kansas City physical activity plan stamp of approval for certain organizations or something like that.
Yeah, like a certification. I like that. And with the talent that we have, we probably could put league officials and league leaders through some sort of program that they would have to comply with to get the stamp.
I think I don't know exactly where it's going, but just along that standard, if you take a look at what some of our friends at Vanderbilt have done in Tennessee, they've created what's called a Safe Stars program, where they've tried to rate, whether it's youth organizations, communities, on what things they offer to promote safe sport within their community, and maybe creating a similar type program where you kind of reward or recognize folks that are meeting certain criteria for whether we decide it's participation, inclusion, safety measures or sports, whatever it is. We come up with our own kind of rating scale, and then kind of, again, use that as an approach of this is a gold star, community organization or something of that nature.
Yeah, and then you don't have to get necessarily all those different leagues to agree with each other. They just abide by that one central standard that sort of outside of their group. And that'd be less meetings too, which is
That's a good thought.
I love the Royals. I watch or listen to just about every single game. And the downside of listening, I love listening to the Royals on the radio. The downside is they play the same commercials over and over again. And so I've heard Dayton Moore say in a commercial over and over again that they have a program where they recognize quality coaches throughout the region. And, once a month they bring in a quality coach that meets this particular standard, and, they give them like VIP treatment for a game or something like that. So I don't know anything about this program other than I hear this commercial all the time. Is there something like that for coaching? Does anybody know about that? Or any other discipline in the region?
There's something called Presidium that I actually had to go through with Brookside Soccer. Nick Garcia does a great job with that organization, and Presidium focused, primarily on, the kind of as a response to what happened with the Olympic, gymnastics deal, but really requiring every coach in their league to go through a process of understanding sexual assault and sexual harassment, and really understanding the role that a coach has in the lives of these kids. And it's very well done and it's arduous to go through, but I'm sure people have other experiences with this kind of thing. It is the kind of thing that I think we're talking about that would be part of a certification. And I think with what's happened with DEI and really understanding, the inclusion and diversity and equity, that whole piece would also layer on top of this, where we probably have organizations that we could pull in and work coaches through and league officials through, that would allow us to provide a really quality certification on a number of different levels that we all agree are the right things for these people to know. Just my 2 cents.
Okay. Strategy 1 was about coordinating around regional policies. Strategy number 2 is very similar in that it involves establishing a regional entity that unifies stakeholders and strengthens stakeholders. So I've kind of viewed strategy 1 and 2 kind of as hand in hand. And if you look, they both were rated very, I don't want to say poorly. They were rated lower than the others on average. I guess on the little bar graphs that you see on the screen, the orange dash horizontal line and the blue dash horizontal line represent the average rankings or the average score across all strategies. So both were generally below the average. However, this discussion that we've had, I think has been very helpful. And to me, these strategies are ones that may not be at the highest level of priority, but it seems like everybody does think that they are important. So without trying to end the discussion here, so we have time for the other sectors. I think, is that a general consensus? Is that we should not completely discard them and continue the conversation? Okay, great. So we'll move on to strategy 3. And this one was ranked quite high. So in the Mentimeter poll, strategy 3 was actually the highest rated priority strategy. And it received high marks in the other survey, both for likelihood to be implemented locally and for potential to improve health. And so strategy 3 is leaders in multiple sectors should expand access to recreational spaces and quality sports programming while focusing on eliminating disparities in access based on race, ethnicity, gender, disability, socioeconomic status, geography, age, and sexual orientation. So it's a very long strategy. But it seemed that everyone seemed to think highly of it. I guess I'll kind of open it up for comments. Maybe there's universal agreement on this, since there may be less comment on this one. I guess, again, things to think about is this already happening already? In which ways is it already happening already? If so, and then just any other comments.
So as KC Crew, we welcome anyone. We kind of always have said that we're the sports league for the kids who didn't make the team. We have those teams. We welcome recreational leagues. That's how we started. So people who are just wanting to have a good time. We did start with gender rules in all of our rules across all of our leagues. We've slowly been adding more things. We added a LGBT plus league, a sand volleyball league a few years ago. We started offering mixed leagues or gender specific, so male leagues, female leagues, or mixed. It can be whoever, and we've added a couple more options for those sports as well.
I just say, I think this is the key to the whole thing for sports. If you can't get access to sports, then all the rest of it kind of doesn't matter. So I think I agree that this is the most important thing on there, is that we have good access, again, for recreational. The elite stuff is kind of taking care of itself, I think, but it's more the recreational. It's for the kids who maybe are gonna not get asked to be on that elite team. We want to make sure they still have a chance to play beyond like second grade or whatever, because I know that a lot of things tail off pretty fast for the kids who aren't the elite players.
I have a question on that, because we're solely adults. Is anyone here coaching or offering a program that isn't one of those elite programs, that is open to anyone to play? Just genuinely curious.
Others may know more. They offer it sometimes, probably it'll say 6th grade and beneath. Once you get past about the 6th grade, there is a marked decline in the number of places that promote recreational sport. So, which I think is a travesty, personally. But
yeah, one of the things that we've talked about is starting a youth program that is for those kids who, once they don't make the team, once school sports are available, that because I agree, I haven't seen anything that is available for 6th grade and older.
Yeah. And I talked to Luke about that about 3 years ago, thinking that it would be really good to try to create some sort of rec league. And the National Youth Sports Strategy came out in 2019 and was kind of tabled through COVID, but now there is on July 27th, the National Youth Sports Strategy will have its first regional summit here in Kansas City. It's a virtual meeting. I put the link in the chat room. Dr. Catherine Satterwhite and a bunch of other individuals will be coming together to talk about that youth sports strategy. It's a 112-page document that focuses on participation and how important it is to do this strategy. And really well written. It's same thing with everything that we're talking about. It's research-based, and the group that is coming together includes Jessica Lublau from WIN KC. Robin is on the steering committee to plan that, along with Bryce and myself, and a host of other people. And everyone here is obviously invited to participate. If you go to that link and sign up with that on that Google document, you'll get all the information.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Bill. And we do have that. Well, I think Bryce has got a slide about that that we'll go over a little bit at the end. And I think we tried to pass along most of your names to the group, so hopefully you got an invite. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I think Woody, you were going to say something.
Well, yes, sir. Because speaking from kind of a venue standpoint, I'm kind of in a unique position as well, because I do coach high school basketball, but then I do train outside of the arena. But I did kind of want to speak from a venue standpoint, where that was kind of one of the sole reasons why the arena was, erected. Like, we wanted to be that really great central location for access to multiple sports, with having the track and the courts and being able to, get into pickleball, basketball, volleyball, just be that outlet for, just about every sport that we could technically utilize. The access was one of the biggest things that we wanted to address. That was one of the main concerns of folks, was like, well, there's not a lot of places that we can go. During the summer, you've got a lot of the high schools that typically shut down, and they don't allow access to the gyms or to the fields, or you have to have a bunch of rules in place or coaches there, for those folks to be, or the kids to be able to get on them or to use them. So when you've got, relatively every high school gym that shuts down, then where else are they going to go during those downtimes? So we've kind of somewhat struggled with finding the programs that, can actually get kids here. Transportation to the building was a concern, with, I guess, trying to utilize the space. So we wanted to really kind of get the message out there that we do have a lot of space and opportunity here as a venue to take on a bunch of different programs. And Katie can kind of speak to this too. So having KC Crew in the building, here for the arena has been huge for us as well, with utilizing a lot of their programming in sports. But, we are looking to pull in, really whatever we can, especially with the calendar. We've got a lot of downtime, especially during the summer, during those school hours, I guess you can say. And then we really pick up in the evenings with the larger practices or some of the league things like KC Crew. So, I did kind of want to put that out there, that once things get going, or programs are looking for spaces to really get housed or to get running, we would love to have them here.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And, oftentimes I kind of forget that access lots of times means just the most basic form of access, which is actual physical places to do an activity. And, a lot of our activity happens in our neighborhoods, in our local schools. Our local elementary school, for example, in my neighborhood, had locked its fence around the playground. And so you didn't have access to this beautiful basketball court, playground, soccer field. And luckily, they made the decision to unlock it during the summer. And so that's, you know, that created another access point for just kids in our neighborhood. One that I'd like to maybe ask a little bit more about is we've got Chris Harris on today. Hi, Chris. And Chris has done amazing things in his neighborhood. And can you maybe talk a little bit about if you have leagues or for, you know, kind of non-competitive, just play leagues in your park?
Yeah, we definitely do. We always center our events around some type of education of everyday life. So it's not like we actually do a classroom setting, but it's just teaching through mentoring and everyday life. So we do keep it competitive. But I would say with that age group, the talent with that age group from 16 to 30, when we do our basketball tournaments, we have to be fully staffed across the board because it brings so much a different element of, I would say, security and all types of things that we have to be prepared for when we do those age groups. I know we're doing a basketball tournament that's going to be competitive 303 on the 1st, and we're doing one on the 7th. And we're preparing for that just to have enough staff to make sure everything goes smoothly. So the numbers are there. When we used to do them full time, we did 100. I mean, we did 10 teams, and this was outdoor league. And we got kids that's all over. I mean, a couple of people in our leagues are playing that's playing in Spain that didn't even go to college. One of our guys that we really are pushing forward, he is what do you want to call it, the commentator in Australia right now. So we got a lot of guys that came through our program that are being very successful that didn't even play high school basketball. So the numbers are there. The content is there for them to do it. It's just the people need to put it together for them to be able to use it. And again, that age group from 16 to 30 brings a lot of challenges that it can be done though.
What about like under 16 age kids? Do you have many of those leagues?
Absolutely. We actually got one now where we're just starting. We just kicked it off last week. So what we're doing is we're teaching the basics of basketball through golf, basketball, and then we're showing them the forming. After we go through a couple of weeks of training them with the basics, then we'll pick out who wants to go to a league to actually do competitive play and who wants to actually continue at the basics. But we allow them to choose that. We don't choose that for them. We allow them to choose that.
Yeah, and costs. Do you charge for these or?
The first one, the school paid for. We usually try to charge $25 a kid, $20 a kid, because what we have learned over the years, once it's free, we don't get the buy-in from the parents to bring them. Once the parents pay a little something, they always bring them.
Yeah, that's.
And we try to keep it cost efficient here at Harris Park because we looked at the AAU ball and that just gets a little expensive. I mean, that stuff gets really expensive. So we try to put a little cost on it that we know that everyone can afford.
Thanks for sharing that. Bridget Ray posted in the chat box about the program that her and Dr. Leitner are running. And that's a sports-based after-school program. Do you think that does something like that fit in with the strategy here?
I think so. And just so everybody knows, we try to do an after-school program in KCPS middle schools to get kids exposed to different sports. That's the kind of the research question. I think it definitely fits into this, and I'd be interested to see kind of like where we move forward with this, and if that has any kind of like scalability that can happen. Be interesting.
Yeah, and the interesting thing to me is around the physical space. If they're at school, then they can stay at school, or hopefully they live close to their school, so transportation to and from might be a little bit more manageable than if you have to drive downtown from some other part of town. Well, lots of great conversation on this one. Again, just to kind of keep us moving forward, we'll move on to strategy 4. Strategy 4 is sports organizations should adopt policies and practices that promote physical activity, health, participant growth, and development of physical literacy. So as I read this means getting at the kind of the non-competitive aspects of sports around motor development and just the health benefits of being physically active. This was obviously, because of that, was rated very high for a likelihood to improve health, second highest actually from the survey, but very low, below average for implementation. And I don't know if anybody had any comments on that. Just the additional things from the survey were that only 75% of respondents thought that this could be done within 3 years, which I believe was one of the lowest that we had in the survey, but it did receive much higher marks for long-term 5-year window for being implemented. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that or why that might be, but.
To me, this is where technology comes into play, and if we can reach people multiple ways through Zooms, apps, instead of Dr. Leitner has incentivized people to do this, then I think we can achieve a lot. I think there's a lot to offer through technology and connecting people that way.
So Jordan, everybody knows what physical literacy is, right? I mean, because it's a weird concept.
Yeah, why don't you actually, I was thinking about Move More, Get More program with this. So maybe do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure.
You guys do a great job with it.
Yeah, so we measure physical literacy, and it's essentially like how confident is the kid. We measure it on kids, but how confident are children in like running, jumping, balance? Can they do all these things? Can they do it well? And are they comfortable in doing all these different tasks with physically, right? So we measure physical literacy with evidence, a scale, scientific scale, and we see that physical literacy predicts a lot of different things. From like there's a relationship between body image and physical literacy, and a whole host of different metrics that we analyze, and it's a really, really important. Like before a few years ago, I had no interest in physical literacy, but it's super interesting now, and HHS has a huge push to study it and measure it more, and I think it's important, for kids to be able to be confident in all of these things. So what I'm trying to say is we're developing quite a bit of, we're understanding the relationship between physical literacy and other health indicators more and more, and the impact of physical literacy on physical activity. And obviously there's kind of like this reciprocal relationship between if kids are physically active, they have higher physical literacies, which then makes them more physically active, right? So I think it's an important one. I think that maybe it was scored low just because I don't think a lot of people actually know what physical literacy means, but.
Yeah, and it becomes, I was with you, Joey, where I really didn't have a lot of interest in it. But then you start seeing how just basic motor development plays such a huge role in most directly future sports participation. And then, like you said, the whole host of other things, body image, mental well-being, all of those things come later. And so I think that it really is, I don't know, the kind of the secret sauce of some of this in some ways. I have seen, and I forgot to bookmark it, but I've seen some organizations do have nice toolkits available for like at-home physical literacy. Here's how you draw a jumping jack pattern on your driveway to practice locomotion. And basic things like throwing a ball through a hoop. And it sounds very, very elementary, and some of these things at the lower levels are, but I think it obviously has different levels that you can
Hey, Robin,
yeah.
One thing I think I would invite everyone to think about is if about literacy as teaching kids to read, and then there's this whole big push to do literacy. I've had several different former athletes approach me and ask me if they could put together programs where we teach kids certain sports, and while the kids are out on the field doing their thing, we have parents in a classroom learning financial literacy, and as a way of giving back to the community and helping elevate people out of poverty. Maybe this is part of what cross sector we start thinking about is not only around cross sector around physical activity, but cross sector around this whole idea of becoming more literate in what it takes to be a healthy member of our community. And we maybe tie ourselves into some of these other organizations that are focused on reading and financial literacy. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I'll just give one little comment about, we've mentioned cross-sector collaborations a little bit. I think one of the, on a higher level, one of the things that we're excited about the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan is connecting different parts of society that normally aren't connected. And so we have existing societal sectors in 10 different areas, so we can connect sports to faith-based institutions. We can connect early childhood centers to sports participation, and we've got business sectors and mass media sectors. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities as we develop the plan to connect these different things like what Bill was talking about. Any other comments around strategy 4? I think, someone put in the chat about Win for KC, about teaching different kinds of sports over a week. I think this definitely gets to physical literacy and just enjoyment and trying lots of different skills. Obviously, Chris Harris does these things at his park because he's got golf, he's got basketball, he's got play equipment, he's got free play area. And as he mentioned earlier, he's exposing kids in his camps to all of those things at once.
I think there also used to be a push by the KC Sports Commission, and that they had a large use kind of sporting exposure, I'll call it, for any big event that came to town. And it was really driven not towards making you an elite athlete, but maybe just exposing everyone to a different sport, whether maybe it's a lacrosse event. I think one year they did ultimate frisbee, things just to drive sports participation. It would be great to kind of get that approach with any sporting event that comes to town from KC and kind of build up on the momentum behind that.
Yeah, that I thought that was a great program, and we partnered with them. We'd go down and talk to the parents, and then the other volunteers would take the kids over and show them sports. It happened actually multiple times a year, but if there was a big event, they also tried to focus on that. So like when the NAI came to town, they'd do a basketball weekend and that kind of stuff. But I thought that was a great program, and it just kind of died. Just kind of went away. But something to that effect where you can just expose lots of kids to an easy, no pressure kind of weekend, 2-3 hours, with some good volunteers, and getting everybody the ability to find out what they like. Because all your friends might like basketball, but you might not like it, but that might be the only thing being played in your neighborhood. So you're not gonna find out what soccer's like until you go get with another group of kids to play soccer. So, and I think with our different, you could get, I would hope, buy-in from Sporting KC, Chiefs, Royals, to kind of promote some of those, in at least in their specific sport venue, to kind of help with that.
If I could chime in quickly, and this may be a little bit off topic, but in the same direction of the educational pieces. If we're doing an event this weekend where we're going to have the golf going, we got the basketball going, the play area going, and we got the weight room going, and we're going to have a talent show, and we're going to have drill teams. At the same time we're doing all that, we're going to have all type of educational pieces going throughout. So we're expecting probably 4,000 people this weekend, which would be Saturday. So we're going to be setting up all type of educational booths. But what our approach is just get kids here for sports, clean up our neighborhood, and do whatever we can to introduce them to any type of educational piece that we can. So all the activities that you see is only 5% of what we're doing. The 95 is educating the people in the community and the people out of the community, because when the people come into this community and see the sports, it triggers an effect of that the neighborhood is not bad. So we're using sports in all catalysts, and it's really just working. And we just constantly continue to do those things, and it's just constantly continue to grow. So I just wanted to add that little piece in here. So if anybody was interested in seeing how we do that, that is going to happen this weekend, Saturday, between the hours of 12 to 6.
Great, thanks for bringing that up, Chris. And I've been lucky to have a couple of conversations with Chris over the past month or so, and I'm so impressed, because all the things that we're trying to get other people to do, he's already doing. And so thanks for joining us today. I think we got a lot to learn from you, Chris. So just to keep things moving, any other comments on strategy 4? Just as I say, keep things moving. We're going to try to get through all the strategies today, but I also want to leave a few minutes just for kind of open general conversation where we can talk about some important events that might be coming up, or any other things that we want to talk about. So I'm going to try to get through the rest of the strategies in about the next 10 minutes or so, 10 or 12 minutes. So strategy 5, this one is kind of a shift away from the other ones that we've been talking about. It should ensure that sports programs are conducted in a manner that minimizes risk of sports-related injuries and illnesses. And this was rated very highly for implementation and highly for improving health. And I think we are really lucky. We're at Children's Mercy, and we've got some great Children's Mercy clinicians on board. So maybe I'll kind of let you guys provide any comments that you want on this strategy.
I personally think that this could tie into the thing we talked about with creating a that kind of Safe Stars initiative like they did in Tennessee, where you kind of give a rating. Does your league have a catastrophic sports plan? I think that's a big thing. I mean, sports, I don't want to make too much of a focus on sports injuries, because my goal for this group is to drive sports and participation and athletic activity for physically active lifestyles. And so I don't want to make a big ordeal out of injuries per se, but I do think the thing we focus on is trying to prevent, catastrophic sports injuries, unnecessary sports injuries, heat illness. Does your league have a policy around heat illness? Environmental concerns, lightning, thunder, right? Like things that are really things that we can implement and set as a bar, and really help a lot of youth organizations who may not have that expertise available. We do this at the high school level. We do this at certain levels, but so many youth sporting organizations don't have that easy access to someone they can help them with those type of strategies or plans, and just to make sure they have those implemented. I think that's something we could get done.
And once again, coming out of COVID, nothing more important than making sure our bodies are ready for getting back out onto the field.
So this is one of those strategies maybe where there already are resources that might exist. It's just a matter of getting them out in the community. Is that fair to say? Yeah. So this is great. I mean, like, this is one of the strategies that was a lower priority, but this might be an easy win type strategy that can be accomplished early as part of implementation efforts.
Yeah, and at least at Children's Mercy, between our sports medicine department and Margot over in community benefit and what she's trying to offer to schools and stuff, we could probably do something similar for youth sports organizations, where there's kind of this menu of things they can ask of us. Can we give them a lightning policy or a weather policy? Can we teach them on heat illness? Can we teach them on concussion, that sort of stuff? Which I think we kind of already know those things. So it'd just be a matter of, connecting us with the right people.
So on the adult side, we do have like weather policies put into play, which are great, but like preventing injuries is hard as an adult. Of course, it's hard to prevent injury. Well, there's precautions, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. But we do have a partner in Athletico, and they're like a local PT group, and we essentially, so if someone gets injured in our leagues, we have to fill out an injury report, and then from there we follow up with a phone call and an email and say, hey, we're sorry to hear about your injury at your league last night. We have a partnership with Athletico. Please go there and get checked out if you feel like you need to be treated for your injury, and you'll get a free evaluation from them. So we do follow up afterwards, but it's not necessarily injury prevention.
Great, thanks for sharing that. I'll move on to strategy 6. Strategy 6 is near and dear to my heart, because as a scientist, we love tracking. This is basically, we should develop and implement a comprehensive surveillance system for monitoring sports participation in all segments of the population. And this is something, and I just hold on one second. I misplaced my, maybe Bryce, you can throw a link in there for the Kansas City regional report card on physical activity in children and youth. So this is something that we at a higher level, in terms of addressing policymakers and tracking changes over time, is to create a surveillance system for all metrics related to physical activity in kids. So this is, just rates of physical activity, but it also includes things like walking and biking to school and sports participation. So this is something that we're particularly interested in. We're building into some of the Children's Mercy surveillance systems, some sports participation metrics. But I completely recognize that it might not be important as we get down closer to the ground on day-to-day sports leagues and things like that. Anybody have any comments about that? It was ranked quite low for implementation locally. In fact, it was the second lowest, I guess. And I don't have it in front of me, but we received generally good grades as a region in our report card for sports participation, because a lot of kids participate in at least one sport throughout the year. However, this is an extremely misleading statistic and grade. because there are enormous discrepancies in sports participation across the region, across age, across sex, across race and ethnicity. Unfortunately, we don't have concrete data to support that. It's mostly anecdotal data. And so this is something, again, that I think is important to track, but maybe is not important, particularly within this specific sector. It might fall into, kind of a more public health area.
Well, I mean, if you get buy-in from certain organizations, a lot of organizations, to get maybe a certification or whatever we come up with, that can be part of it, is they track their athletes a little bit better for us and give us some concrete data of, age, gender, race, socioeconomic status, if they ever end up with that information. But that might just be a little thing to add to it. That might give you better numbers.
Yeah. Thanks for that comment. And thanks, Bryce, for pulling this up. So this is it's a little hard to see, but you can go to the link and find the whole thing. But for sports participation, the region received a grade of a B-, which was actually our highest grade of any of the metrics that we measured. But again, that's driven really by number of kids participating in at least one sport. But we all know, I think of I have a little brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters. He participates in one sport through school, but doesn't have access to sport participation outside of school for the remainder part of the year, even though he would love to do it. So those are the types of things we're missing. I'll move on and try to get through the last two strategies quickly. So strategy 7 is coaches, game officials, parents, and caregivers should create safe and inclusive environments for sports participation that promote physical activity and health for youth and adult participants. And I think we kind of have touched on this in discussion on other strategies. For example, Casey Crew talked about some of the things that they do. Some of the specific strategies also, tactics are related to the Safe Sport program, which has come up a couple times. Additionally, some things around training for coaches and key competencies. So I think that we're kind of touching on these in some of our other conversations. And, you see this a lot, where there's not clear delineation between strategies. There's a fair bit of overlap in some of them. Any additional comments from the group on this one? This was the second highest rated priority.
Robin, a lot of this, I think, depends on the area that you're in. If you're doing something with Misha or Keisha, with the high schools, they have their standards that you have to go through and meet as far as their classes, logging on, doing, those web type things that they have. Now, when you get to the competitive side, like with the AAU, with some of these more live period events, like, for example, this weekend, we're going to have one of our live period weeks here through NCAA. You have to have your USA, gold license, like certification, just to be on the bench and on the court, for those type things. So there's so many different entities that play a part or have some sort of credentials that you have to, end up meeting. All of those things don't necessarily, line up. It's really one governing body that says, hey, let's have this, and you pay this amount and you're fine. And then you've got all these other ones that, also come up with their own rules and regulations. And just depending on, again, where you are at or where you're coaching in, those are the specific criteria that you have to meet. There's really nothing across the board that everybody has to follow. But like to that point, there are some tournaments that you see the competitive level get so high that parents are now getting out of hand, but it's almost like it's allowed. But then who's allowed to step in and actually make that call of, okay, you guys need to leave, you guys need to calm down, or this is literally a youth tournament. Like it's not that serious in some, occasions, but those I guess those parameters aren't set, prior to folks coming into certain tournaments. Yes, the competition gets high and things get a little intense, but at the end of the day, it is a game, and it's hard for folks to kind of separate those things when their kid is involved, off of this. So it's an interesting thing. And then I do want to, encourage, if anybody's in Kansas City, come check out, the games this weekend. OCAM's going to, runs a really great, live period event. We're going to have some great games going, but you're going to be able to see firsthand, a lot of what we're talking about today.
Thanks, Woody, for that comment. Yeah, great point about a lot of this really is sport specific and even, I guess, level of competition specific, whether it's, high school sport or league play or who knows, even Olympic level sport, I guess. Well, I'll move on just because, I think as I mentioned, we kind of touched on a lot of these topics in other strategy discussion. And strategy 8 is really kind of unique on its own because this strategy says organizations should use advances in technology to enhance the quality of the sports experience for participants. And I guess maybe, Bill, I know you're probably picking up your kid right now, but if you have time, do you just want to talk about, you're heavily involved in this area?
Well, as is a number of us, it's one of those things that I think this is definitely needs to be a collaborative effort. We've put together an initiative and asked for some support from some foundations that fund these kinds of things. We've got a $25,000 grant that's restricted from the Kauffman Foundation to build an app for kids, targeting middle schoolers, getting them active and engaged with sports, using that money to try to put together an app to with the Kansas public school system this fall. We will build an app that will allow us to download the app onto their laptops. We'll provide them an after-school special every Monday afternoon with a champion of fitness throughout the city. We've had different fitness champions step up and say they want to participate in being the champion of fitness for that week. They will work the kids out. We'll also use that hour to entertain the kids. We'll use it to motivate them, let them know that we're connecting to them for a specific reason, and that is to keep them physically active and engaged, and also teach them things about physical literacy that are critically important. The key to this is when we do the after school special, every time they do a workout, they're going to earn a point for each minute they work out. And on the after school special days, they'll get double points. And the rest of the week, they'll be assigned 4 or 5 different workouts from the fitness champion. And each minute they work out, they get an additional point. And those points can be used in our online store to incentivize these kids to continue to stay engaged with us. And we hope to build it as the year goes. And that's the type of thing that we're talking about here is how do we use technology to make a difference? One of the critical pieces of any kind of fragmented access to sports situation is transportation. Is there a way to create a transportation method using technology that gets kids into practice and into the games so that parents can rely and can trust something like that? There's a number of other ideas that we probably have all thought of. When I started talking about this to Dr. Leitner, he's like, we're all over this, dude. We've been doing this for a while. And, it was just nice to know that we're all in this same boat together, rowing in the same direction, and that collaboration is present with the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan, and that it's happening. And If this pilot goes well, then it has the potential to spread to other school districts and to open up to other kids. And this middle school age is the target. These are the kids that are dropping out of sports as they make choices for what they want to do in high school. And we want to try to encourage them to stay connected to physical activity and sports throughout their high school career and throughout their life. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, thanks to that, Bill. And, thanks for mentioning Dr. Leitner and Bridget and their work with Move More, Get More. Kind of short on time, but they briefly, I know they're using kind of social media apps to engage with their kids. So, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever, which, that's another great way to do it. Of course, we've got, Garmin is a local, and, there are people I know that use Garmin devices and apps to engage with kids throughout the day. So, I think that this is almost one of those things that really probably might be embedded in everything that we do. It didn't get highly rated as a standalone priority, but it really kind of crosses everything, perhaps. So with that, I want to be respectful of people's time. So I think I'll kind of end the discussion on the strategies right there. What we'll do in between now and our next meeting is we weighing in, and Children's Mercy and Bill and Adrian will go over our notes. And hopefully by the time we meet next, we'll kind of have a nice summary of this discussion. And then we'll start talking about specific things to do within the strategies to increase sports participation and to improve health of kids and adults. But I wanted to mention 3 things in the last 3.5 minutes. And the first is figuring out who might still be missing from this group. And so Bryce, I think he's going to put this REDCap link in the chat box. And so you can add people who you think might be good members of the group. Obviously, we just finished talking about technology, so maybe we need to get people from Garmin or some other technology company involved. Maybe there's other people that, I don't think we have any representation from our professional sports teams today, even though they came up a couple of times. So feel free to add them to that link or just put them in the chat box. I also wanted to mention specifically mention the Kansas City Youth Sports Summit. Bryce, do you want to throw that in the chat box? Hopefully you all have received invitations to that. If not, it will be Tuesday, July 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I think Bill threw in the link to get registered. So please join us there. I think this fits in exactly with what we're doing here in the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. The benefit of this workshop is it's federally funded. And so there might be potential opportunities if there's a lot of involvement, great involvement for future events from that side of things. And lastly, I want to open up just the floor to anyone to provide any other comments or to talk about any events or anything else that they've got going on. I see Woody just posted about if anyone wanted to come check out Hy-Vee Arena and see what can be implemented. He listed his phone number there. Chris mentioned his event that's coming up this Saturday. Feel free to unmute yourself and talk now.
Just real quick, Unite KC is doing a reconciliation walk from Troost, 17th and Troost to Urban Youth Academy at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. And once we get to the Urban Youth Academy, we're going to have a little bit of fun there. There's a sports sector that is involved. This is something Dayton Moore came up with, and you can do that. And then right after the Unite KC walk, you can go down to Chris's and have fun with Harris Park.
Good combination.
And I'm driving, but there is a Unite KC website. If someone could throw that up in the chat for everyone, that would be great.
Done. Great. Well, feel free to share any upcoming events with us. You have our contact information, and we can circulate it to the group. Otherwise, our next meeting, as I mentioned, if we stick to the same meeting schedule, would be Wednesday, August 11th at 1 p.m. Any objections to that time? Is there anything big going on then that we might be missing? There might be a conflict? I'm not hearing anything, so we'll stick with that time. We'll use Evite to track, to send out the invitation and meeting information. We'll also send out any potential surveys that we might ask you to participate in advance. Otherwise, we'll use real-time Mentimeter tracking and engagement during the next meeting. We're 1 minute over, and I really just want to thank you all for joining us today. It's hard to get 90 minutes in your busy times, so we really appreciate it all. I'll leave it to Bill to give any final comments. Just don't get in a car wreck, Bill.
We're good. Thank you all. We're better together, and let's just keep figuring things out together and solve some of these problems so that kids and adults have a better life. That's what this is all about.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys.